Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and welcome to another edition of Fairground Fridays, where we'll be doing yet another ride, and that's so our fairground is even more packed and stacked with motorised ride goodness. Yummy! Now I better start with the introductions. You know me, Robin, you know the circus ringmaster, but this is Clyde, who'll be helping us with our build today. He is an incredibly skilled ride operator, and he will be controlling what we produce today. But I'll push those back just for now to give you a quick update on the Daily Bugle, which has got that high now, only just a bit above what's out of shot. And you can lift off this front section and get in there and so on. So I'm about, well, halfway in height terms, but probably more in numbers of brick terms. But it is a great big set, and I've got quite a lot on at the moment. Another thing I haven't had time to do is the amendments from the last ride that we did, being this little duckies ride. I have started hooking out pieces to improve the beak, or rather the duck's bill, because it's supposed to be a baby duck, not a baby chicken, of course. And I think my favourite one at the moment is this one that does actually look a bit sort of duck bill-esque on the end there, with what looks like almost two bits of duck bill kind of joining together. So I think I'm going to incorporate that in. And I was thinking maybe I could incorporate some feet in as well. Another ideas that I'm probably going to incorporate is kind of a pond bit here that they can dip into, and maybe have all of this mechanism lowered so we can see more of the duckling's head. But one thing I have decided on from the amendments that you suggested already is the name. A couple of people suggested this and I really liked it. So I think we're going to call last time's ride the Dizzy Ducks, which I think is a really fun name and kind of incorporates every aspect of it, including the fact that it's for younger children as well. So a bedoing for you. Brilliant. So I will put that to one side and we will definitely amend that properly in due course. But for now, I think we need to get on to today's build. And this is very much inspired by a friend's set, actually, 41133, Amusement Park Bumper Cars from 2016. And it's not the bumper car bit that I'm particularly interested in. I mean, as you'll probably know, I've already done my own bumper car ride, and I think it's slightly better than that one. Yes, it's very much the second ride that forms part of that set, which I think has got an incredibly clever mechanism. Essentially, it's got a lot of gears all down the side, which when you turn the main handle, which makes the entire ride move in a very large circle, it also enables that motion to be transmitted to the car itself, which then spins on its own little axis for double the fun. So basically you end up with this sort of spinning round and round whilst it goes round in an even bigger circle. And I thought that that was really clever, and something that definitely wasn't represented in my fairground on any of the other rides I've got already. So I thought I would replicate that. But the first thing I did was go into LDD, Lego Digital Designer, to tidy up a few aspects of the ride I didn't like. I thought there were a few bits on the side and a few very visible Technic pieces which I didn't particularly like the look of and could be quite easily removed to improve it. I removed a few other things as well just to tidy up the area, and changed the colour scheme as well because it was a bit too busy with white, medium azure, yellow and pink. So I kind of figured I'd get rid of the pink and make it a bit more simple a colour scheme. And then finally, I had changed the carriage over to accommodate minifigures, of course, rather than mini dolls, which included moving the safety bar and so on, so it would accommodate minifigures safely. So that's what we ended up doing in LDD, which gives us this. And you can see it's a lot better off for those fewer number of colours, I think. We've still got the lovely movable sort of safety beam here, and spots for two minifigures side by side. So I can just get two random people who are having fun today. So we'll put them in there and there. He seems to be enjoying it a lot less than she is by the looks of things. So we can kind of push that in to hold them there and put their hands down as well. So yeah, so the motion involves the whole thing swinging like a swing, but all the way over. And while they're doing that, this thing is being spun at a faster rate. So they're upright at the top and they're upright at the bottom, but they go through an awful trajectory, if you ask me. That's definitely got to make you feel a little bit queasy on the route around. So I think that's a really interesting ride. And at first glance, it's actually quite confusing as to how this actually works, because there's lots of gears, but how come it manages to sort of stay still here? And actually, what it is a combination of axles that basically runs up to about here, and then it is changing to actually a Technic pin. So you see that these two are actually static. And they are basically acting as the support for the second side, but they're also the sort of static base that these therefore run around. So you see this second gear is actually just running around that one and is turning therefore on the spot, which is transferred down and down to the carriage. So, you know, if you do it wrong with the wrong combination of pins and axles, you end up with something that's either rigid or completely falls apart. But yes, it's really quite clever. Now, we do have these visible gears, rather, and that isn't ideal, I suppose, but it is relatively unavoidable. And if you look at real rides in real life quite closely, you'll always see that there's some workings. I did kind of want to get this beam in right next to here, so it kind of mirrored this side and have the gear workings on the outside. But because they need to transfer the motion all the way to the carriage itself, they really do have to be on this lift arm here. So, what is the next step then? Have we finished the ride already just by copying that friend set? Well, no, not anywhere near, because this ride does need to be motorised, of course, because otherwise it simply won't be let into my fairground, because every ride has to be motorised. Now, the first thing I did was I tried just motorising this as it stands, and it was incredibly problematic. As you might have seen from the way I'm turning this, it's quite easy sort of at this low height to turn, but as soon as you get up here, you really have to heave it with quite a lot of grip, really, by the time you get up to here, because it always wants to go down because of that imbalance in the weight. So when you attach a motor to this, which I have done, but I won't do as part of this video, essentially it needs an absolute load of power to get it up to here, and then it's, well, going far too fast, and it just powers around the second bit, and quite frankly it ripped these people apart. So it's just absolutely running around at a massive pace in order just to keep going, to have enough power to get up the upslope, and it sounds incredibly painful, because on the downstroke, it's obviously got the weight in its favour, and it's kind of going faster than the motor's spinning naturally. So you end up with this horrible type motion, and it sounds and looks awful. So an obvious solution, as you can probably guess what's coming next, is to add a second carriage. And that's why I've got these lift arms going all the way through the central point and out the other side, unlike the original ride. And that's so I can put on a second car that's exactly the same shape and weight and so on, which, although it won't be completely smooth motion, will take out the massive weight imbalance. So let's add that second car. We can see how it looks with that. Alright, so here we are with the second carriage on, and I've done this one in a slightly different colour, keeping the medium azure accent but using the white as the main colour rather than yellow. And I think that's subtle enough a difference, because obviously this ride will be in amongst all the other brightly coloured rides, so having it as a relatively muted colour scheme is probably refreshing, actually. So one of the main changes that we had to do from the original on this was the lift arm setup, because the original's got a 11 long lift arm that supports the carriage, and it uses the connection on the 10th hole, so it's kind of 10 long effectively from here to here. But we couldn't make one 20 long because, well, they just don't make them that long. So the longest type of this long yellow piece is actually a 15 brick length. So essentially that was the one that I'd have to use, which means I have had to modify the setup even more. These are a bit sort of closer to the central axle, so it's even more sort of scary. And I've also had to change the sort of gear setup on the outside so it reaches, and we've just got a little one in here to kind of span the gap. But essentially that works in the same way, with both of them spinning in unison, and they're both the right way up at the bottom and the top. There is a question as to whether it should go kind of that way when you're sort of diving forward off the top, or whether you're sort of going forward at the bottom and kind of going backwards there. I don't really know which is most scary. I kind of think it would be more scary like that. But anyway, so we need some new people in the top. So I've got another lady here, and she can go there. And we've got a guy who's really enjoying it with his hands in the air like he just doesn't care. And let me just rearrange her arms so she's got them over the top of the bar. There we go. So they look like they're also having fun, perhaps more fun than this guy actually, who doesn't look that happy at all. And the balance, as you can see, is much better. I mean, it can stay in that position. It can stay probably like that if I get the point right. Yep. So the motor's going to find that a lot easier to turn. And in fact, I'm finding a lot easier to turn with my hand here. So that is really good as well. Now, way after I designed the changes to this with the 15 long lift arm, I did actually find that there's another ride which actually uses the same setup with the 15 long arm and 2 cars. And that's the 41337 Underwater Loop from 2019. And that's the one with a kind of turtle themed car and a clownfish themed car, which uses pretty much the same setup. But that one doesn't have this sort of extra rotation motion around the outside. So they are permanently kind of the right way up and are just doing that, which is a lot less fun indeed. That's definitely not double the fun. And now we've got 2 cars. I think we've actually got quadruple the fun. So I'm definitely of the belief that this one is much better than, well, both of those friend sets now. Besides, calling it underwater loop when they don't actually loop, I mean, they go around in a circle, but I wouldn't even call that a loop, really. So anyway, right, so the obvious next stage to this, now we're pretty happy with this motion, we're happy with the balance, we're happy with the colours, is to get it motorised. So I'm going to bring in a medium motor from Power Functions, and I need some of my rides to have completely concealed mechanisms in the kind of hidden basement layer of my fairground, but I also need some to have motors above the ground where I'm not going to have that recessed area. So I'm going to have some of my motors hidden inside caravans, and this is going to be one of those. So you can see there is a medium motor inside this caravan, which is yet another one based on the 6694 car with camper from 1984, and I've decided to do this one in a nice lime colour as its accent colour, but otherwise it's the same as ones we've previously done, and it's got the obligatory satellite dish on the roof and some sort of clamps here, and then the wire is very discreetly coming out of a hole there and will vanish into the floor when we put this in its final setting in the fairground, and won't be seen at all. And then ultimately, obviously, it'll link up with a battery box. So I need to get this into here, but at the same time, I also need to add this gear. So I'm just going to do that first, actually. It's very hard doing this sort of thing with a camera in front of your face. There we go. And then that needs to go in there. And it's probably not going to like me trying to do all this at the same time. Ooh, it's going. There we go. Oh, right. So that little gear out the back will be turning at a rate of knots, and it'll be powering a much bigger gear, thus gearing down the speed and making this go a bit more slowly. And we'll have to pick the right speed on these variable speed power boxes, so the ride looks very realistic. So I'm going to start it off relatively slowly. So here is its inaugural run. And I think that looks pretty good. In fact, we've probably got the direction wrong, because I think we said we wanted it going forward at the top rather than forward at the bottom. I don't know. That looks all right. Let's try it the other way. Do we want it that slow? Maybe a bit faster. I mean, one problem with this ride is it does look like we're seeing the underside of the carriages for half the time, and I suppose that's unsurprising, really. We can't really have minifigures on both sides, because I don't know how on earth they'd get in and out of the thing. But yeah, that looks pretty good. I think probably that speed might be the best. But one thing you're definitely going to want, I'm sure, is a full speed test. So I'll crank it right up. And it's not destroying itself, which I suppose is a really good sign. But it definitely looks, well, I was going to say vomit-inducing, but I think it's even worse than that. It looks like it caused you a permanent injury if you were going around at that speed for too long. So I better tune it back down. And I think this might be one of several rides that I need to have, you know, on a reduced voltage essentially, or maybe have another gear mechanism that's gearing it down even further. But yeah, I like the motion. What do you think? Still think it looks like a horrible ride to go on. I definitely will want it. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist in the real world, this ride. So I don't know if Lego have based this on a real life type of ride or not, but I couldn't find a real life equivalent on Google Images anyway. So that really means that we're going to have to come up with another name for this as well. Because if there aren't any official names for it, like a pirate ship or a roller coaster that we all know very well, we'll have to come up with a name that very much, exemplifies what we've made here. So my starter for 10 is the barrel roll, because I figured that each of these are kind of barrel shaped and they're kind of rolling, and they're kind of rolling in a big circle as well, as we've seen. So what do you think to that? The barrel roll? It sounds sort of a good enough name to represent the sort of horrible, violent experience you're going to have riding it. It's definitely only for the very hardcore ride fans. Only they can stomach it, especially if it were to break down in that position. Right, so to finish this ride off, I better have Clyde close at hand to operate it and make sure it doesn't leave everyone hanging upside down. I'm also going to add one of my height boards, because I reckon this will definitely be one of the rides that you definitely need to be an adult to go on. So that will mean that unless you are the right height, as Clyde is, then you won't be able to get on. So I'll put that there and Clyde in front of that. And then I thought another thing I would add to my fairground, which isn't big enough for its own video because it's just a very small scene, but I did make it and I thought it was really good fun, so I thought I'd share it, is this. And you may think, oh, big wow, it's a guy in a tracksuit or sweatsuit. But I figure it is harking back to the 90s and he's actually wearing a shell suit. And I'm not sure if they had those all around the world, but basically they were very sort of thin and shiny tracksuits, and they looked really awful and thankfully were only in fashion for a very brief period. But the very disturbing thing about shell suits is you never saw one on its own. So I thought I would make a shell suit family. And it's one of those families that are very, very creepy in the fact that they're all wearing exactly the same clothes. And you would see them sort of going around somewhere like a fairground as a family. So we've got dad and mum, and we've got boy, who doesn't look very happy at all. I've done that deliberately because he's mortified with embarrassment at being with his parents wearing the same clothes. And ditto this little girl here, who takes after her mum with the blonde hair, but also really is enjoying going to the fairground in that set of clothing. So there we are. There is my shell suit family, who I think are a real joy and a very fun scene that I thought I'd share with you. So I think that is our short and sweet build of the day. It actually took quite a long time to get all this working accurately, but it obviously doesn't take you anywhere near as long to show. But I'm very happy with the result. Do let me know, as always, if you've got any ideas for improvement to make the motion better or to make the decor better or anything. I don't need any suggestions about the surrounding area. As with all these rides, like the duck one that we did, that we looked at very briefly earlier, I am going to wait till all of these rides are in their final setting, on their final plates, because they'll all be on different combinations of plates, no doubt. And even we'll know where the orientation is, because I want all these rides kind of very close together, very packed and stacked, and I want them all just about to hit each other, or should I say just about to miss each other. That would be a better way of looking at it, because the density of all the rides in the fairground is going to be absolutely crazy. So until I've got all of them in place and all of them kind of crushed together, because there's going to be so many of them, as you're probably starting to realize, that until I've got them all in position, I just don't know what room is available. So I don't want to spend loads of time making each one have a lovely surround that I'm just going to have to sort of take out and get rid of in due course. So yeah, better to get them all in place and then decide on how they link together. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It's quite nice, bright and colourful. It's unfortunate we've got all these gears, but I do think that's unavoidable. Cool. So do remember, if you've got a better name for this ride than barrel roll, which I shall use in the meantime until I've got the final one, do let me know. I think it's got to sort of encapsulate the kind of motion that the carriages go through, and maybe the nausea that they induce as well. I don't know. But as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time a Robin Hood Bricks will be back in the city on Monday. We'll be doing another haul on Wednesday, and then we'll probably be back in the fairground on Friday. So until then, see you!